Due to copyright, I can't publish many audiobooks on YouTube. At our audiobook novel service, we offer access to over 300 full novels from Pocket FM, Webnovel, Audible, Wuxia, and more, all in high-quality audio format. Each novel is available with a one-time payment only. No subscriptions, no monthly payment, and no ads. Payments via PayPal or Ko-fi. To browse the full list of available novels, message me directly on Telegram or WhatsApp, or check out our full catalog on Discord. Chapter 654, Remnant South 2. Chapter 654, Remnant South 2, Herc. Several gagging sounds filled the surroundings as the cadets emerged from the other side of the portal, their bodies falling to the ground while they held onto their stomachs in distress. Bleark. Some even puked. What the hell? There were some that held it better than others, but in general almost everyone was having a hard time. This couldn't be helped. The portal was an extremely long-distance one. Even Delilah was surprised by how far it brought them. All she did was follow the direction of where she found the clues to be. It led her to this exact place. Splash! Splash! Standing before a tall cliff as crimson water sprayed all over, Delilah looked towards the surroundings, her gaze falling on the crimson waters. Her deep black eyes narrowed as she looked towards the sea. Though she couldn't exactly pinpoint the location, she felt a terrifying presence hidden within the depths of the water. One that even made her tense a little. Whether she could win a fight against such a beast or not, she wasn't sure. And that was enough to tell just how powerful the creature was. The creature was also another reason why she didn't teleport any further. She was sure it would try to stop whatever she tried. Wow, look! All of a sudden, as one of the cadets recovered, they pointed towards the distance. That was when all heads turned and focused towards the distance, where they saw several structures and buildings alongside a tall spire. The faces of many changed. Wait, is that a city? What's going on? Wait, look! There are people. Holy shit! Delilah's eyes narrowed as she looked towards the distant city. She could feel a few troublesome presences in there, but not enough to make her wary. She wasn't at all surprised by the sight. The mirror dimension was vast, holding several empires and kingdoms in the past. There indeed existed cities and civilizations that still thrived in the mirror dimension. However, most empires were aware of their existence. Looking at the city, Delilah's eyes narrowed faintly. Could he be? Her thoughts faded as she saw the cadets all turn to look at her. She merely looked back without saying anything else. This is the next part of your trial. Try to interact with the locals and figure out more about the mirror dimension. Her figure faded shortly after that. She herself needed to do some digging regarding the place. As her figure faded, the cadets collected themselves and looked around before eventually settling their gaze towards Aoife, who appeared to be in deep thought. Should we? As someone was about to suggest exploring the place, Aoife shook her head. No, that wouldn't be smart. Why? I'm sure most of the people there are somewhat aware of who comes and goes there since this is the mirror dimension. If all of a sudden a bunch of strangers show up in the city, things will look suspicious. Only a small number should go, and we should also change our clothes. Aoife's suggestion was reasonable. A lot of the cadets understood her intention and stopped speaking. Eventually settling her gaze on a certain few, Aoife's voice lowered. What do you think? The moment the massive shadow that stretched across their vision appeared, Lazarus's mind blanked. All previous thoughts faded from his mind. We're here? Already? He had expected the journey to be a lot longer than this. He had been prepared to stay in the ship for a few more weeks to even month. But they were already here? This quick? Looking at the faces you two are making, you seem surprised by how fast we've managed to reach the Remnant South. That's... Lazarus looked at and eventually nodded. Yes, this was a lot faster than I anticipated. I thought it was going to take a lot longer to reach the Remnant South. I get it. And dismissed with her hand, placing it over the wooden top of the ship while looking towards the distant land. You're not wrong to think that. Under normal circumstances, it would have taken much longer. But if you haven't noticed, our journey went unusually smoothly. Nothing happened to hinder us, and we moved forward without a single delay. The fact that we've managed to arrive so quickly shouldn't really come as a surprise. Lazarus opened his mouth, but soon closed it. Indeed, she was right. Their journey had been smooth. No pirates, no monsters, no anything, but that wasn't because of their luck. Far from it. This is the first time that something like this happened and, here, cutting it off, Lazarus tossed her a small mirror. Huh! Catching the mirror, and looked at Lazarus in confusion. Why did he? Just look at it. Though confused, and still followed the merchant's instructions and looked at the mirror. Her brows immediately jumped up the moment she saw nothing in it. What sort of? So the same is for you. As if finally confirming something, Lazarus nodded his head as he looked at Inaz, who was also staring at the mirror. He didn't look as shocked as An did. Probably because he had also noticed the same thing as him. Is this some kind of joke? Why don't I see? Because our existence is slowly being erased from this world. Anne's expression, alongside Anaz, changed rather severely upon hearing the merchant's words. What are you talking about? What do you mean by our existence is slowly being erased from the world? You must be joking. I am unfortunately not. Lazarus shook his head, his face dead serious. Flicking his hand, a certain book appeared as he showed it to them. Their faces stiffened the moment they caught sight of the book as they both looked at him. Don't tell me. Yes, the Luminarch wasn't lying to us before. We were all targeted by the Great Primordial, and most of our memories of its abilities were erased, making us brush over what had happened before. Wait, 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 wait. And as, still in denial, hastily grabbed the book and started flipping through the pages. As he started reading, he kept mumbling things like, "This makes no sense. How come I don't remember? What is happening? Please let this be some sort of joke." But then, he reached the inevitable page, and his expression froze. "Ah!" He covered his mouth, his face turning completely pale. It appeared like it all finally dawned on him as and snatched the book from his hands and showed a similar reaction just a few moments later. The bow fell silent as neither one made a sound. That was until Lazarus broke the silence as he took the book. Our existence is being gradually erased. It begins with our memories of the Great Primordial One fading away. That's where it truly starts. Lazarus flipped towards a certain page, reading a certain passage or extract of someone who had once encountered the Primordial One. Fragment from a torn journal, author unknown. It begins with forgetting. The Primordial One first. Its name, its shape, its presence, gone. As if it never was. Then, the mirror forgot about it. I stood before it, expecting to see my face stare back in weary familiarity. But there was nothing. No reflection. Only an empty pane of glass. I touched it to be sure I was still there. To be sure I hadn't dreamed myself into absence. The glass was real. I was fading. Next were the shadows. Mine no longer followed me. Where once my body cast long, flickering outlines in candlelight, there is now only light and floor. I walk beneath the sun as a hollow thing, and the world no longer acknowledges me. Then, when it truly begins, the forgetting. Those I once called friends pass me without pause, their eyes vacant, their smiles empty. My name no longer stirs recognition. My voice, when I speak, seems to reach no ears. I am a ghost tethered by the last fraying threads of perception. I can feel it even now. The pull, the dissolution. I am being erased, not with violence, but with indifference. A slow erasure authored by a force too ancient, too vast to be understood. A force that does not hate, for hate would require acknowledgement. No, this is worse. I am being forgotten by the very fabric of reality. Soon I will no longer write. I will no longer speak. I will no longer be. I will drift, unseen and unheard, among the remnants of lost things. No more than a murmur in the wind, an echo like the voices that drift in the air. Pray you never remember me, for if you do, it means it has already begun for you as well. There is no escaping. It was a chilling passage that described the entire process of erasure. First, it will be the memories. Then, it will be the reflection, followed by the shadow, and soon our recollection. The world will soon forget us, and will turn into nothing but the voices that whisper in the air. Lazarus's teeth slowly clenched together. They were now in the second phase. If this is true, what the hell are we supposed to do? There was clear distress in Anaz's voice as he covered his mouth and took deep and heavy breaths to calm himself down. No, wait. Could this be what Silas had been planning the entire time? Anaz's words gathered the attention of both Lazarus and Anne as they looked at him. He continued, "Think about it. Silas is a hollowed, meaning that he's made up of voices or tunes. What if Silas and the Great One are working together? What if this had been his goal the entire time, and he is just waiting for us to turn into voices before absorbing us?" It all clicked in that moment. The reason for Silas's actions, the reason he could call the Primordial One, and his sudden disappearance. He had been working the entire time with the Primordial One. His goal was to absorb them. Although Lazarus didn't fully understand why they had been chosen, he knew that he must have had his own reasons. In that case, Silas might be the key to solving this situation. But that's easier said than done. And suddenly cut off, her voice grave. Who knows where he is right now? As far as I'm concerned, he could be all the way back in Virinthanash. By the time we find him, if he's not hiding, it'll be too late for us. So are you saying we're doomed? Anaz said. His expression was tight as he looked at Anne. That's exactly what I'm saying, and replied, her voice cold. That's not true. Lazarus cut Anne off, his expression and voice unexpectedly calm. As he looked towards the two of them, he continued, "The situation is indeed unfavorable, but I doubt Silas is far from where we are. We are his targets after all. He will eventually come for us. But, whatever the case is, we're just wasting time." Lazarus looked towards the distant land. "For now, let's head to the remnant south. We might figure something out when we reach the place. Though I doubt I'm wrong. Silas, he was definitely going to come for them. Of that, he was sure." Chapter 655. Remnant South 3. Virilith. Such was the name of the nearest main city within the Remnant South. Located by the shore, the city wasn't hard to spot from a distance, mainly due to the massive spire that pierced the sky. "That's the Ashen Steeple," and spoke the words softly, her eyes fixed on the distant structure. "It's one of Virilith's most iconic landmarks, part of the Cathedral of Light. It serves as the heart of every temple and church dedicated to the goddess of light." Raising her head up, she focused on the top of the steeple. Some even claim the goddess of light dwells there, but no one truly knows. It's been a very long time since her last appearance. There are even rumors that say that she's died, but no one truly knows. Lazarus's eyes narrowed as he heard Anne's words. They were all still preoccupied with the actions of the primordial one, but for now, their attention could only turn to the city on the horizon. Lifting his head to stare at the steeple, Lazarus's eyes flickered. "So there's a chance the goddess might reside there?" He pressed his lips tightly. This was an interesting piece of news. "Well, they're just rumors, so don't mind them too much. The real problem is that we're within the goddess of light's domain, and given what we've previously done, it is best if we tread cautiously." "Right?" Lazarus touched his face. Did he have to change his appearance again? That was a bit. "I also need to change my face since I'm quite recognizable. Thankfully, it's not like this is the first time for me." Chuckling, and tossed both Anaz and Lazarus a ring. "This is a special relic that we use in order to make people forget about our appearance after seeing it." "Huh." Both Lazarus and Anaz looked surprised by the ring. "It generally works with most people. However, if there's an exceptionally powerful mind user, they'll be able to remember our faces. That's why it's best to lay low while we're within the city." "Oh." Lazarus fiddled with the ring in his hand. It was entirely black, almost matching his other ring. He suddenly thought of something. "What about the eclipsed maw? Where is that?" "The eclipsed maw?" And turned towards Lazarus before tilting her head. "That's not too far from where we are, but this isn't the best time to go there. The tides are strong at the moment. I'd say that we would need to wait about 3 days before going there." 3? Yeah. Going there now would be too dangerous. Lazarus fell into thought, but raising his head, he soon saw Anne's expression turn even stranger. "You want to go there, don't you?" "Yes." Lazarus didn't deny it. This had been his goal the entire time. He needed to go there in order to collect Oracleus's eyes, the last remaining artifact before he could collect all 4 relics. "You know what? I'm not even going to ask," and sighed before signaling her crew to stop the ship. "We'll have to stop here. If we move any further, we'll risk the very real chance of getting spotted by the envoys of the church. There's currently a pretty big bounty on us, so it's best if we stay cautious." As she said that, she leaned over to the side of the ship where a smaller boat appeared. Where did that come from? The boat was about 1/5 of the size of the main boat, and it seemingly came out of nowhere as both Lazarus and Inez looked at and in surprise, placing the ring on her finger, and just smiled. "I'm not one of the 7 lords of the Crimson Sea for no reason. There are reasons as to why I'm still alive and kicking." Without waiting for the two to say anything, she kicked the ground and jumped towards the ship below. Anaz and Lazarus could only stare at each other before following along. Thud. Landing on the ship, they looked around. The ship was nothing great or fancy like the previous boat. It looked like an old fishing boat, with hooks by the side and several boxes littered throughout. "Are we fishers? Is that our identity?" Anaz asked while looking around, his expression a little weird. "Nope," and shook her head while moving towards a certain box and kicking it open, revealing several bones. "We're bone merchants." Holy shit. Anaz's eyes widened upon seeing the numerous bones scattered on the ground. There were more than 100, and even Lazarus was surprised to see the sheer number of bones present. "They're nothing great. A lot of infant-grade bones and a few terror-ranked mixed in. It should be enough to fool the city guards. Been there, done the hey, leave the bone on the floor. Don't touch it." Pausing mid-sentence, she started reprimanding Anaz as he fiddled with the bones on the ground, his eyes falling on a particular dark bone. He was practically salivating. "Can I?" "No, you can't." "What, why?" "Because it's expensive. But it can help me get stronger. It's not suited for you anyway, so stop bothering me. Please. I'll slap you." Anaz could only begrudgingly drop the bone on the ground and sigh. Shouldn't expect anything less from a pirate. What was that? Nothing. Moving towards the inner part of the ship, and started the boat. Several runes lit up, and the boat started to move along the water, moving away from the main ship and towards the distant mass of land. As the boat started, a young girl with freckles and twin tails appeared from within the ship, startling Anaz. What the fuck? He stood up while looking at the new figure. Who are you? When did you? It's me. It was only when she opened her mouth and her voice came out that Anaz realized who it was. You changed your appearance? How come? I thought that. Unlike the two of you, I need to take extra precautions. I'm rather infamous in these parts. You two have a bounty, but your faces aren't that well known. Even if they do see through your disguise, it might not click with them. The same can't be said for me. She then turned her attention towards Lazarus. Since we're going to present ourselves as bone merchants, it is only right that you take over from here. Me? Lazarus looked surprised, and however nodded her head. Yes, it'll make things even less suspicious. I see. Lazarus wasn't necessarily against the idea. It was just that he wasn't really a merchant to begin with. Well, it doesn't matter. I think I've gotten the hang of it anyway. Very well. Lazarus moved towards the bow of the ship and looked into the distance. The mass of land was drawing nearer, and as his hair fluttered, he mumbled, "Looks like the Grey Chamber will be making a comeback." "Oh right." As if recalling something, Anaz spoke from behind. Lazarus slowly turned his head to look at him. "I've been curious for a while. What is it? Why did you call it the Grey Chamber Merchant Group? Is there a reason for it?" "Yes, there is." Lazarus nodded his head seriously. Then, under the watchful eyes of both Anaz and Anne, he pointed at the sky. "It's because the sky is gray." By the time they arrived at the port of Virolith, an hour had passed. The sky hung low and gray, and the crimson sea was restless, slapping against the dark stone that made up the breakwater of the port. Splash! Splash! Thick iron chains stretched from the docks into the water, groaning with each pull of the tide as the ship the merchant and his crew were on rocked back and forth. In the distance, dozens, if not hundreds, of ships were docked by the port, each varying in different sizes, with several tall white boats catching the most attention of all of them. Splash! As another wave crashed against the breakwater, the merchant trio finally managed to get into the port. The waters calmed down from that point as they moved past several areas and found a place to dock. It was right as they found a spot that a white boat stopped before them. "Who might you be?" A man clad in white appeared from the top of the boat, staring at them from above. His features were hidden by the faint white cloak draped over his body. "Hello." Lazarus stepped forward, his movements a little rough. He had to change his persona a little to be more fitting with his current job. Taking a step to the side to show one of the boxes, he lightly nudged it with his foot, allowing it to fall and display the bones. "I'm a bone merchant looking to find some business in Virolith." "Merchant?" The man garbed in white paused before jumping onto their ship, his movement light like a feather. Bending over slightly to look at the bones and analyzing them, the man in white didn't find anything suspicious. He looked towards the other crew and also didn't seem to notice anything out of order. "Everything looks in check." He nodded faintly before turning around. However, right before he did that, he paused and looked back. His eyes paused on one of the bones as he picked it up. "You wouldn't be so kind as to gift me one, would you?" "Oh." Lazarus raised his brow while looking at the bone and then the man in white. A smile soon marred his features. "Oh no." Finding the situation extremely familiar, Anaz's face turned white as he looked at the man in white. He hurriedly shook his head. "Don't do it. For your own sake, don't do it." But it wasn't as though the man in white could hear Anaz's thoughts. "Is that okay?" "Okay." Lazarus suddenly laughed while clapping his hands. "Of course it's okay." He moved closer to the man in white while placing his hand over his shoulder. "Why would I be so unkind and not gift you a bone after you've helped me? It would be extremely ungrateful of me." "Kukuk." "Kukuk?" And looked at Lazarus weirdly. He was behaving rather strangely. "Yes, it would." The man in white nodded while Anaz held his head in despair. "He's done for. He's just lost his freedom." Noticing Anaz's strange actions, and frowned before moving closer to him and whispering, "What's wrong? Why are you acting like this?" "I." Anaz bit his lips while slowly turning to look at Anne. "You wouldn't understand." He eventually shook his head, his eyes looking at the envoy with pity. "The pain and suffering that man will go through from this moment forward." Anaz's body trembled as he started thinking about the suffering the envoy was going to go through. "It's... what the hell?" Taking a step back, and felt chills run down her body as she looked at Anaz, especially since, He was smiling so creepily. Cook. What the fuck? Chapter 656. Remnant South, 4. Chapter 656. Remnant South, 4. Enjoy your stay in Virilith. Taking the bone, the man in white hopped back onto his boat and gestured with his hand to allow them through. Shortly after, the boat moved away, and the three were allowed to dock at the port. Keck, holding back his smile, and as looked towards the distant white figure and shook his head. What a poor soul. He then looked towards Lazarus. So what's his job going to be? His job? Lazarus blinked his eyes, looking at Anaz in confusion. What could he be talking about? Anaz dismissively waved his hand. You think I'm a fool? Anaz chuckled inwardly. He knew the merchant well enough to know when he was going to make someone his next victim. What would you even need him to work for you for? Don't tell me that you've stalked him as well? Or is it that he might know some important information? Oh? Lazarus continued to look at Anaz in confusion. No, seriously, what in the world was he talking about? Huh. Seeing the look on the merchant's face, it was Anaz's turn to look surprised. Wait, is he not going to work for us? Work for us? Why would he? And suddenly interjected from the side, looking even more confused than Anaz. Lazarus scratched the back of his head while looking at Anaz. Why would he work for us? Because he took money from you? Like me? Anaz felt his eyelids blink at a pace slower than usual. Something didn't feel quite right. Oh! As if suddenly understanding, Lazarus moved closer to Anaz and patted him on the shoulder. Your thinking isn't wrong. So? But that wasn't my bone. Huh! It belonged to Anne. Anaz's eyes widened. Wait. So it doesn't really matter to me if they take it. Not really my money. Lazarus looked so proud while saying such words. Anaz, on the other hand, stood frozen, his thoughts in complete disarray. Doesn't matter to me if they take it. Not really my money. It belonged to Anne. Ha. Anaz suddenly laughed, his feet staggering back as he looked at the merchant. This motherfuck. As one of the main cities of the Remnant South, and where the main Temple of Light was located, Virilith was a large and imposing city. Finding a place to dock, the merchant and his crew got off the boat with the boxes in hand. Neither of the three attracted much attention, as there were several others who appeared to do the same. The dock was rather lively, with merchants walking all over as they settled their goods around. It's been a while since I've been here, and looked at the surroundings with a calm expression. She didn't look at all out of place in this weird city. Looking around, her gaze eventually fell on Lazarus. What should we do now? He was their current leader, so all decisions really fell on him. Although she was still extremely worried about the situation with the Primordial One, her mind and thoughts were completely blank on how to handle the situation. She had dealt with so many things in her life, and yet, this was the first time that she felt so helpless. In such a situation, finding someone who appeared rather calm in such a despairing situation felt reassuring. He also appeared to have some idea of their current situation. Maybe if it was him, there are a few things that I'd like to find out. For now, I'd like to visit a certain place. Lazarus's head raised as his gaze settled over to a large steeple in the far-off distance. The cathedral? Both Anaz and Anne looked at the merchant with surprise. But then, their faces changed. That's quite reckless. There's a bounty on us at this moment. If you were to go there, then, don't worry about it. Lazarus's voice remained calm as he kept his gaze fixed on the distant steeple. I've got my own means. For now, I'd like the two of you to find some place to rent and start selling the bones. At the same time, try to find out more about the current situation within the city, and any possible news related to the eclipsed maw. Well, and frowned, but then shook her head. There's no need to go through such troublesome means. I know a few places where I can get the information that you need. All I really have to do is pay them. I'm going to head out there anyway, so this might just work out in all of our favor. I see. Lazarus was a little surprised to hear this. But then again, she was one of the 7 lords of the sea. She needed to be at least this bit capable in order to survive for so long. He calmly nodded his head before looking at Anne. We can meet up here in 2 hours. Is that enough? That should be plenty. She nodded back before turning to look at Anaz. What about you? Are you going to come with me, or? I'll just set up the shop myself. It's much easier that way. Pulling the box from Anne's hands, Anaz turned his attention elsewhere and got going, and traced his back before going in a different direction. I'll be back here in 2 hours then. All right. Lazarus looked at the two leaving before turning his attention towards the distant church. He also started to get moving. As he moved, his eyes fell on the top of the ashen steeple. Goddess of Light. I wonder if she really is still alive. Virathanash. Following the incident with the Luminarch and the merchant, the entire city was tense. The tensions were so high that even a random bystander felt it. The bazaar was no longer as lively as it once had been. Much of it left in ruins after the clash between the luminarch and the merchant. Temple emissaries now roamed the streets with hawk-like expressions. For the time being, the city was shrouded in a tense atmosphere. Within a certain inn, a group of 7 sat at a table. As the last member entered the inn and pulled down his hood to reveal a pair of slick gray eyes, Leon paused, glancing at the others. "So? Did you guys find anything out about this place?" "I more or less managed to find out quite a bit." "Same. I think we all managed to get the same information." Right before entering the city, the 8 of them decided to split and search for information about the place. From the currency to language and everything about the place, they planned on learning all about it before meeting up at the inn a few hours after, which was now. The currency here seems to be the Salas, and everything here is quite overpriced. Aoife was the first one to speak as she tossed several coins on the table. They seem to be linked to the goddess of light, Panthea, and it appears that her influence within this region is massive. This also doesn't look to be the only city. There are several other cities under her jurisdiction, with the main one located in a place called the Remnant South. As she spoke, Aoife couldn't help but press her lips together. Despite being royalty, she found herself at a total loss regarding the situation. Be it the Academy or the Empire, nobody had mentioned to her about certain places like this existing before. She had always thought that the mirror dimension was some lonesome place with hardly any living humans, but this had completely shattered her perception of the place. No, it makes sense when I think about it, especially since there existed past kingdoms. But still, to suddenly find out about this place left her a little lost. It must also be quite far from the Academy crack since there's been no mention of it in any books I've read before. Lost in thought, Aoife didn't notice that Kira had taken over the discussion. "I found pretty much the same things she did. To be honest, it's kind of hard to communicate with the people here since the language is different. But thankfully, there are a few devices that can help with that. After that, I managed to find a few other things." Kira began to share her findings. Great Primordial One, 7 Lords of the Sea, Temple of the Goddess of Light, and so on. She had very detailed reports on the situation. Her reports were so detailed that it left everyone speechless. "What?" Seeing the looks that she was receiving, Kira tilted her head. "What's wrong with all of you? Why does it look like you're constipated?" "I don't know about this." Aoife held onto the side of her arms. "This new Kira, I'm not really feeling it. In fact, I'm getting goosebumps. Holy shit." "Same." Evelyn also held her arms as they looked at Kira, who frowned. "You fuck." The brows of both Aoife and Evelyn shot up when they saw that Kira was about to swear. However, they quickly settled down in disappointment when Kira stopped herself and shook her head. "Never mind. Tisk. We almost had her." Kira clenched her fists but maintained her poker face. Leon and the others were pretty much already used to the scene, so they didn't say much. In the end, it was Caius who started speaking. "I think everyone already knows most of the stuff, but I found something interesting while exploring the place." All attention fell towards the quiet Caius as he looked around with a deadpan expression. From time to time, he'd show some semblance of emotion, but he was usually still deadpan. Some sort of incident occurred recently. It was between one of the 7 lords mentioned by Kira, the Luminarch, and some sort of merchant. A merchant? Leon curiously blinked his eyes. This was a piece of information he hadn't heard. He had mainly focused on learning about the layout of the city and its structure. He did notice several abnormalities, but he didn't investigate deeply. Yes, a merchant. And it also looks like the merchant was able to take down the Luminarch or at least do something to him. Wait, isn't the Luminarch supposed to be strong? You're telling me that a merchant was able to fight against him? Agatha suddenly spoke, her hand brushing her blonde hair back. What sort of fucked up merchant does this place have? Or is it that the Luminarch was weak? No, far from it. Caius shook his head while recalling what he had heard. It's the merchant who's the strange one. He appeared out of nowhere and started trading bizarre goods, taking over most of the market within a week. There aren't many detailed descriptions of him, but from what I've heard, he's a fairly handsome middle-aged man with a calm, peaceful demeanor. Caius paused, sorting through the information in his mind. I've tried asking for the merchant's name, but it seems to be some sort of taboo around this place. It's almost as if everyone is scared of mentioning him, especially those that managed to witness his fight with the Luminarch. That bad? Leon asked, his brow raising in surprise. That bad? Caius replied back with a nod. Leaning back, Kira just barely stopped herself from clicking her tongue. Fucking habits. Then you don't know his name? No, I still managed to figure it out. Oh, everyone looked at Caius in surprise. Then, what is it? As Aoife asked, Caius's brows furrowed tightly. In the end, he mumbled, "They called him the merchant with the 1,000 voices. Lazarus." Bang! A chair fell all of a sudden as everyone turned to look at the pale-faced Leon, who stared directly at Caius. "What did you say his name was?" Chapter 657. Oracle I-1. Chapter 657. Oracle I-1. "What is wrong with you? Are you okay?" Leon's sudden actions startled everyone as they turned towards him. He wasn't usually like this. Why was he suddenly acting like this? As everyone started to question his actions, Leon's gaze remained fixed on Caius. "What did you say his name was?" "Lazarus," Caius replied slowly, his face just as confused as the others. Neither he nor the others could understand Leon's actions. That was until Kira suddenly thought of something. "Lazarus? Isn't that name kind of familiar? Now that you mention it..." Aoife thought for a moment before smacking her fist onto her palm. "Oh, right. Isn't that the name of the guy from the Ivinus family?" Leon's reaction finally started to make sense. But at the same time, the others shook their head. "Wait. Don't tell me you actually think that it's the same one from the Ivinus family, right?" As Evelyn asked the question, Leon finally managed to recover himself as he looked back and placed his chair back in place. "Sorry," he apologized rather quickly as he took a seat. "I'm probably overthinking things. I was just startled by the name." "Well, fair enough. That name's kind of unique. What are the odds we see someone else with that name?" Kira laughed while leaning back. Leon looked at her and forced a smile. "Yeah. Indeed, what were the chances?" Leon didn't want to immediately jump to conclusions, but he didn't think such coincidences existed. But why would he be here? No, it wouldn't make sense. I don't exactly know where this place is, but I'm sure it's really far. Would that guy really be able to get here? Leon's thoughts started to spiral as he thought of the Lazarus he met back in the academy. Thinking about him, Leon's mind was blank. He couldn't recall much about him, but he knew that he had accompanied him to the mirror dimension. This was at least what he had been told by the Chancellor and the guards. He had been in quite a bit of trouble back then. Although Leon's senses weren't telling him a thing, for some reason, Leon felt that the merchant Lazarus and the Ivinus Lazarus were one of the same. That was why he hadn't been able to hold himself back. It's no use trying to speculate on this. I'm sure I can find more information if I investigate. From his appearance to his powers, I'm sure I'll be able to find something. Well, setting Leon's weird actions aside, shifting the conversation away, Amel looked towards the others. Did anyone else find something? Pretty much the same as the others. Yeah. The small meeting continued like that until everyone shared what they found. By the time they were done, they had a good understanding of the city and its layout. Nothing appeared strange with the place, aside from the recent incident involving the strange merchant. Something about the merchant felt extremely off, and after a while, everyone dispersed once again to investigate the matter. They felt that whatever happened had to be something big. However, the more they investigated, the more shocked they grew. A sword user? Emotive magic? Summoning an army of statues from the water? Casting a massive fog? An owl? The more they heard of his exploits, the more terrifying he seemed. But at the same time, this merchant, why did he seem so familiar? This is pretty impressive. Lazarus stopped in front of a huge cathedral. It stood at the center of the city, at the heart of a large and populated plaza surrounded by all sorts of Gothic-shaped buildings. Twin spires reached into the cloudy sky, their dark stones striking against the graying sky. Rows of tall, narrow windows were filled with stained glass that contrasted with the dark stone, reflecting against the white sun above. The front of the cathedral was covered in statues, saints, gargoyles, and angels, looking a little worn as they all looked towards the entrance of the large cathedral. But most striking was the large rose window looked out like a single staring eye. Staring at the cathedral, Lazarus felt small, and looking at its entrance, he could see many people wandering inside. It looked like an extremely popular attraction. As his gaze wandered around and analyzed everything about the cathedral, he decided to head in. The moment he stepped inside, a cool breath of air slid over his skin. Light spilled from high above, catching on the polished marble beneath his boots. The floor gleamed like ice, enough for him to see his own reflection. Or at least what should have been his reflection. He didn't have one any longer. Above him, the cathedral stretched into a vast and massive mural. At first, the mural seemed purely decorative, beautiful but meaningless, all flowing lines and simple shapes that appeared to be there to simply give life to the place. But gradually they began to change. His gaze eventually fell towards a specific section of the murals where he saw a woman with long flowing blonde hair, standing above all else as she held onto a large specter, where he noticed a strange eye in the middle of it. Her presence appeared to radiate holiness and purity, although her face was turned away as she appeared to be facing a blurred-out figure. The figure stood opposite her, its presence looming over like some sort of monster. Lazarus's eyes narrowed at the sight, and as he turned his head, his gaze eventually fell on a certain individual, garbed in brown clothes. "Hello," Lazarus went on to greet him. Looking at him, he looked like some sort of guide. "Hello, how can I help you? Are you the guide?" "I am. Is there something that I can help you with?" "Yes." Lazarus rummaged through his pocket and took out a single coin before handing it to the guide. "I'd like some information on that mural over there." "What exactly is it?" "Ah, that mural." Taking the coin, the guide smiled before looking at the mural. "I'm sure you already have an idea, but that mural depicts our goddess Panthea in her holiest and purest of forms." A look of reverence flashed on the guide as he looked at the mural. The mural depicts the Battle of the Shattered South, one of the most infamous conflicts ever to scar the region, and the battle that granted the goddess rule over the remnant South. Lazarus listened carefully while the guide spoke. He was completely unfamiliar with this piece of history. The battle raged for months as the goddess clashed with one of the gods. To this day, no one knows for certain who her opponent was, but the rumors suggest it was Mortem. "Mortem?" Lazarus's brow rose, and the guard merely smiled. "It's just rumors. No one but the goddess truly knows the truth." Yet the battle was no easy one. It took everything she had to repel the other god. Though she emerged victorious, her precious scepter shattered in the struggle, and from the aftermath of that conflict arose the eclipsed maw. Lazarus felt his breath pause at the words. "It's a rather famous location. It's not far from here, and many go there to try their luck." "Try their luck? What for?" "Well, rumors have it that the remains of the goddess scepter remain in the eclipsed maw. The church has tried many times to search for it, but with no success. We don't believe the rumors to be true, but the goddess herself appeared to have confirmed that her scepter is indeed there." "Oh." As Lazarus's gaze settled on the scepter in the goddess's hand, more precisely, on the eye embedded within it, a flood of understanding suddenly washed over him. He finally understood why he had to go to the eclipsed maw. "However, if even the goddess can't find it, what makes it possible for me to find it?" Noel had never been specific when telling him about the location of the eye. All he said was that he'd eventually know once he got there. Lazarus had yet to feel a single thing, but he could only accept the situation as it was. He was also curious about something. Did he really fight against the goddess? What was the reason? And is she still alive? Lazarus thought of the steeple he saw from a distance, and his face twitched slightly. Things would become rather complicated if she were still alive. Unable to hold his curiosity, Lazarus turned towards the guide. "If the goddess herself says the scepter is inside the maw, that means she's still alive. So why hasn't she gone to retrieve it herself?" "Of course she's alive." The guide laughed. "It's just that the scepter is broken. She no longer has a need for it, and..." The guide's brow furrowed, but only for a brief moment, as he then shook his head. "Well, let's leave it at that. It mainly comes down to the fact that she has no need for it anymore. Although we did try to send a couple of expeditions looking for it, with no success. Some say it broke to the point of leaving nothing behind." "I see." Lazarus didn't believe the words for one moment. If his guess was right and the eye truly was the relic he sought, he doubted the goddess was indifferent to it. There had to be more to it than what she let on. "Is there anything else that I can help you with?" Looking at the guide, Lazarus shook his head and smiled. "No, this is good enough for me. Thank you very much. It was a pleasure working with you. I hope to see you again." "Yes." Brushing his hair back, Lazarus proceeded to look around the church, asking questions here and there before moving out. As he did, the scorching air of the mirror dimension hit him once more as he lowered his head. His thoughts passed the moment he did. His shadow, it was partially gone. Closing his eyes, Lazarus raised his head back up and proceeded to move forward again. "It's starting." His slow and gradual erasure. If you want access to fast updates or the full novel in high-quality audio, contact me now and buy. I offer over 300 complete audiobooks from Pocket FM, Webnovel, Audible, and more. No locked episodes, no subscriptions, just one-time payment via PayPal or Ko-fi. Message me directly on Telegram or WhatsApp, or check out the full list of available novels on Discord. Start listening to your next favorite audiobook today.